A group of NGOs in the Sahel have criticized what they've termed as a highly militarized response to extremism and a militant insurgency by authorities in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. In a report launched on Thursday, the civil society organization said the security approach has fueled more violence and made civilians less safe. It is important to say that there are both positive and, unfortunately, more negative developments, including the fact that civilians have never been targeted more since the conflict began over 10 years ago. On average, 8 civilians die every day as a result of the violence in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. This is the most serious development. The three countries have struggled to shake off an Islamist militant insurgency that is responsible for thousands of deaths and millions displaced.
Sur le plan étatique, le discours officiel utilisé, ce sont
on a state level, the official discourse used is that of Russian instructors and others. That is also polarization. We're speaking of Wagner, of mercenaries, and indeed this situation makes the work of human rights organizations more and more difficult, especially today with an extremely strong polarization between East and West. When France asks for an investigation into a civilian massacre, we see Russia and China's vetoes. It is extremely difficult.
Nous avons le veto de la Russie et de la Chine. C'est extrêmement difficile.
The NGOs also noted that there was no accountability for serious violations by the security forces. French drone strikes killed nearly 40 Islamist militants earlier this week, the French army announced Thursday. In a statement, the French military called the strikes a tactical success. It said the militants were traveling on motorcycles between Niger and Burkina Faso. Niger's government also issued a statement saying the fighters were killed after an attack earlier this week in which 8 security forces died in the southwest of the country. The drone strikes in Niger come as France reorganizes its military efforts in the Sahel region, where thousands of its troops are taking part in Operation Barkhane. After being kicked out of Mali and the presence of a military government in Burkina Faso, Niger has become France's more reliable ally in the Sahel. Paris has said it planned to reposition its forces from Mali to other countries in the Sahel region, including Niger. The militant insurgency in the Sahel has killed thousands and driven millions from their homes.
Africa wants to be adequately prepared for a monkeypox outbreak as cases have been confirmed in 8 countries across the continent. In an online press conference Thursday, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, the WHO Regional Director for Africa, reiterated her desire for the continent to avoid experiencing the inequalities noted in the COVID-19 response.
As WHO in Africa, we're already ramping up support to countries to urgently increase testing capacity for monkeypox, and we're in the process of procuring thousands of tests for the continent. As far as a vaccine is concerned, one of the newer and safer smallpox vaccines has been approved for the prevention of monkeypox. Although we're certainly not recommending mass vaccination at this stage, we must ensure that we are ready should the need arise.
The WHO committee will assess next week whether the monkeypox outbreak represents a public emergency of international concern.
Pangolins are among the most endangered species in the world. Their scales are made of keratin and are highly sought after in Asia. This hospital in South Africa is looking after pangolins seized during police operations.
We haven't yet figured out exactly what the parasite is, but he's suffering from a blood parasite. And what the blood parasite is doing is destroying his red blood cells, so it's making him anemic. And we've been trying to cope with that.
Pangolins are a relatively obscure species, hence the importance of learning and documenting their behavior.
The actual veterinary medicine and rehabilitation process hasn't been well documented at all, and very little is actually known about the African species, our 4 species here in Africa. So the better we can do it and the more we can document, the more we're learning about the species. And don't forget, this is a critically endangered species. We don't know how many pangolins are left on the planet.
Pangolins are among the most poached animals in the world. Demand comes mostly from Asia, where their scales are used in traditional medicine. 15 million people in Sudan face acute food insecurity. This is the conclusion contained in the latest joint report from the World Food Programme and the Food and Agriculture Organization. Behind the crisis are the compounded effects of climate change, political turmoil and rising global food prices.
WFP Sudan has just completed its food security assessment. Unfortunately, our worst fears have been confirmed. We estimate at this point in time that some 15 million people are going hungry in Sudan. Our projections for later in the year indicate that this might be increasing to some 18 million people. The main drivers behind food insecurity in Sudan are the economic crisis, conflict, a poor harvest, and now also the global impact and the fallout of the crisis in Ukraine.
According to the UN report, funding levels fall short of meeting humanitarian needs in Sudan, where 40% of the population is expected to slip into food insecurity by September. The reason for these high prices is the conflict. It's similar to what happened in Tawila, when they killed people and looted their belongings. When we first came here, we received help, but that has now stopped. If I manage to sell something, I can eat. If I don't make enough money, I go to bed hungry. Other than that, we don't have anything. Last October's military takeover put a stop to Sudan's transition to democratic rule after 3 decades of repression and international isolation under autocratic President Omar al-Bashir.